So this is my Raditz blue-green hand control. 1 copy of the leader. 4 Android 21 Bad Omen. 4 Zamasu Deities Wrath. 4 Lord Slug Unbridled Might. 4 Lord Slug Dark Parasite. 4 Majin the Shadow Warrior. 4 Kinko Supreme Ruler. 4 Gowasu Manipulative Supremacy. 4 Android 18 Super Combo. 4 Homicidal Clones. 4 Big Amore. 4 Golden Frieza Unison of Malice. 4 Meta Cooler Terrifying Horde. 4 Vegeta Resolute Agent of Destruction. And 1 copy of Heron's Lineage. Alright, so the premise of this deck is to try to control up to 4 elements, or areas, I should say, in order to give you, control. Mostly you're going to be manipulating your opponent's hand more than anything, because we're going to be using Gowasu to control opponent's draw. We're going to use Frieza to control, mainly to prevent our opponent from gaining cards from their life to their hands. And, we can also use Vegeta Resolute Agents for the same purpose, because it has double strike crit. So we're going to be using crit to not add any card events, any cards to our opponent's hand. And of course, with our leaders, auto, when this card attacks a leader card, your opponent chooses 1 card from the hand and sends it to the warp. So with things like this, we'll be reducing cards going to our opponent's drop, which is useful against certain decks, as well as we'll be reducing the ability for our opponent to get a better hand. If our opponent has a pretty bad opening hand, good, we'll take advantage of that. We'll just keep making it worse. So we'll be counting on that scenario, the ability to make our opponent's hand worse. And of course, we have some basic board control capabilities, because if our opponent manages to get something good on board, that can always make up for a bad hand, right? So we definitely want to make sure we don't allow them to have, establish a decent board. We always want to keep things bad for our opponent. We definitely want to put our opponent in a position where whenever they have to get rid of something, when they warp something, it's a battle card, or when they draw, it's an extra card or unison. Preferably something that's not a battle card. I'm trying to reduce what our opponent could do, especially if our opponents play stuff like chains, like evolution chains, or Union Patara, Union Fusion, Union Absorb, things of that nature, or Evolve, or anything similar to that. Definitely want to reduce it. So we definitely want to make their hands not as consistent as they could be, while, dealing damage, which is the goal. We have a couple win cons. We have Android 21 Bad Omen to burn our opponent for game. We got our Meta Cooler Terrifying Horde win con. You can get about 5 attacks off of just 1 copy of Meta Cooler, not including the leader swing. So that definitely comes in handy when your opponent has only 2 life left. You can just drop 5 attacks off of 1 card. Of course, we have Heron's Lineage. Let us take our opponent's battle cards and use it against them, especially if it's something pretty strong, something with dual attack, something with double strike or triple strike. Is always good to take with that. But we could also use it defensively and take a blocker. Alright, so Raditz, like I said, when he attacks your opponent's leader, your opponent chooses 1 card from the hand and sends it to the warp. More likely they're going to send something that's not particularly playable at the point in time. And then active main. Once per turn, look at the top 5 cards of your deck. Then choose one red or green Raditz, Vegeta, or Nappa among them and add to your hand. And if you did add a card from your deck to your hand, choose one card from your hand and place it at the bottom of your... or place it into the dropper. There's no Nappas, no Raditz, no Vegetas in the deck for this effect. We're only going to trigger... We are going to use this effect, though. We're going to use it to just help us shuffle. Because once we use Golden Frieza's +1 ability of drawing a card and then take a card from a hand and place it on top of the deck, since we don't want to draw that card again, we're going to use Brad's ability just to help us shuffle, so that way we can just shuffle cards back into our deck. You know, stuff that we might want to have later, or we just, you know, want to replace a card from our hand in general. For example, you know, you might not want the Lord Slug in your hands. You rather have them in the deck so you can bring them out with Majin Buu, the Shadow Warrior effect, so you can throw them back in the deck. Any extra copies of stuff you're not going to really use that much, like a Fusamasu, you pretty much only need one at any given time. And you know, Android 21s, once you get one in your energy area, that should be enough. But there are times where you'll play 2 of her, so keep that in mind, especially if you're going to use her for her effect from doing test hands. I end up in scenarios where turn 1 I charge her, and then turn 2 I charge another copy of her, and play Gwasu on turn 2, so that tends to happen a lot. Just nothing wrong with that. That's good, because eventually, once you get to turn 4, you can burn your opponent. So hopefully you're in kill range when you do so. And then to awaken, if you have 4 less life, you may choose one of your energy and switch it to active mode. That does come in handy if you in a combo where bring out Android 21 Bad Omen out for for energy, right? Use her ability to burn your opponent, and then get rid of one of their battle cards. And since this is a 5-drop green card, you can use your leader ability to awaken to untap an energy. So you should be at 3 energy at this point. So you untap, so now you have 1 energy up, and then use that 1 energy to play Fusamasu on top of your Android 21 A Bad Omen. Well, by sending your Android 21 Bad Omen to drop and then play Fusamasu, which will be 20k indestructible, and of course, with their ability, they want to attack, your opponent chooses 1 card from the hand, place it into the drop area. So that, along with the leader's ability, will allow you to make your opponent at least 2 cards per turn. Which will definitely make it harder for your opponent to play the game when they're losing hand advantage, or resources, I should say, faster than normal. And then his awakening ability, still the same thing. When this card attacks your opponent's leader card, your opponent chooses 1 card from the hand, sends it to the warp. Active main, once per turn, choose up to 1 of your red or green Saiyan cards in the battery, and it gets 5k power for the duration of turn. There is no red or green Saiyans in this build, so that won't be of any use. Mainly just using him for his auto and on his front side. And we're using its active main on the front side just to help us counter the effect of Golden Frieza, or just have synergy with the effect of Golden Frieza, especially our Majin Buu Slug combo. Android 21 A Bad Omen, of course. She has the active main. We could pay 2 blue, 2 green to play her from your energy area, which makes her really good to just charge her as energy right off the bat. That way you can, 1, get the blue you need for Gwasu, and also be able to, use her active main ability later in the game. She has the auto that you choose one of your energy and place it into your drop area when you play her, and then choose one of your opponent's battle cards and up to one of your opponent's life and place them into the drop area. What was that? Okay, so Android 21. So Fuse the Masu is indestructible, which is nice. 20k. He has the active main ability where you pay 1. If you have 3 or more energy, choose green battle cards in your battle area with 5k power or more and a total energy cost of 5 and place them into your drop area and play this card. And then there's the auto that when this card attacks your opponent chooses one card from the hand, sends it to the drop area. So we definitely want to get this bad boy out there to help us further control our opponent's hand. What's nice about this card is that you just have to attack to get the effect. So you can attack your opponent's battle cards to, control their board, attack their unisons to, knock off markers, but still be able to reduce our opponent's hands in the process. So that's always good. It's all about controlling your opponent's resources. Then we have Lord Slug, Unbridled Might. That has unique blocker, it's 25k. EX Evolve for 2 energy, draw 1 card. Using a Lord Slug Zeno with an energy cost of 2. We don't have that. So we won't be using that. But obviously the way we're going to get him out into play is through the effect of Majin Blue, the Shadow Warrior. He has first auto once per turn. When this card KOs an opponent's battle card or activates his blocker skill, switch this card to active mode, which is very useful. The ability to block twice obviously is going to be very useful in the upcoming future with everybody, dual attacking or just the whole going wide strategy. So being able to block more than once definitely have. So this is a dual blocker essentially. So that's the first auto. Second auto, when this card is removed from your battle area by an opponent's skill, choose up to 1 card in your opponent's hand and up to 1 of your opponent's battle cards and place them into the owner's drop area. Then choose up to 1 of your opponent's unisons and remove 2 markers from it. Which is really good because it can definitely, that effect can definitely kill a couple unisons here and there. Most unisons tend to drop down to 2 markers relatively easy in certain situations, so this is useful in that regards. I've had this be used against me and it definitely put it in work. So it's a really good card. Even if your opponent gets removes it with a skill, which is the main thing. If they remove this with a skill, you get some benefits out of it. So definitely something you want to get out as soon as possible. Gotta have your defenses up. You have Lord Slug Dark Parasite, which is another target for our Majin Buu, the Shadow Warrior. Although if your opponent has 3 or more energy, when this card is played, your opponent may choose one of their unison cards and place it into owner's drop area. So here's another unison killer effect, which is really nice. But if they don't send the unison to the drop area, you and your opponent draw 1 card, then choose all your opponent's battle cards and KO them. So this can wipe all your opponent's tokens, especially if your opponent is playing a token strategy, like they're using a unison to create tokens, then have to choose between keeping their tokens and giving up their unison, or keeping their unison and giving up give up their unison give up their unison and keep their tokens, or not give up their unisons and give up their tokens. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Clearly, it's a double-edged sword. They either keep their army, or they lose the engine that's creating them, right? So it's one or the other. Preferably, you want your opponent to choose to keep the unison, so that we can just clear their board. That's always the more preferred outcome, but you know, since your opponent gets to choose, well, they get to choose, right? And then we have the Majin Buu, the Shadow Warrior. He's unique with Barrier Auto. Once per turn, when this card is played, look at up to 7 cards from the top of your deck, and then choose up to 1 Dark Broly card with an energy cost of 9 or less, or up to 1 non-black battle card with Zeno and its character name, and an energy cost of 9 or less among them, and shuffle your deck. So obviously we have a 9-drop Lord Slug we can play because he's not black. We have a 4-drop Lord Slug we can play because it's not black, and they have the character trait Lord Slug Zeno. So they're both Lord Slug Zeno, so we can play them through the effect of Majin Buu, the Shadow Warrior. The second auto of Majin Buu is once per turn, if this card is in rest mode, when your opponent attacks a leader card, they choose 2 cards from their hand and discard it. So it's kind of like a built-in TOEFL. So if your opponent attacks your leader with whatever, trigger this auto. They have to pitch 2 cards to do so, which is good, you know, furthering the hand control stuff. Then if you combine it with like Android 18, you can further rip more cards out of your opponent's hand. So there's some good hand control synergy there. And then of course we got the Lord Slug. If you bring out Lord Slug with Majin Buu, you have the added ability of being able to block the Majin Buu. So that way, at least that way your opponent, your leader will be a target for an attack. So if your opponent tries to attack your Majin Buu, you can protect it with your Lord Slug and Ride of Might, which remember can block 2 attacks because it restands. Goes back to active mode once it blocks the first time, so you can block and protect Majin Buu from 2 attacks. So your opponent's going to need a 3rd attack in order to try to get to Majin Buu if they're trying not to lose 2 cards from hand, or they could just not attack at all. Just not attack at all, right? Leave your leader alone, leave your battle cards alone, and just not attack, which is always more preferred, right? Something that you can do that'd be fun to have would be Majin Buu in play in rest mode, right, for his auto, and then drop a Kenko Supreme Ruler on your opponent's turn. That way when your opponent attacks, they have your leader, they have to choose 1 card from the hand, discard it. And then this will just add 2 more for that first attack. So you can take advantage of that synergy. King Code has a counter attack, negate the attack, play this card. We got no extra cards that stay on the field in our battle area, so we got no field cards, so this will cost 3 to play in this deck. And auto, when this card is played, your opponent can't attack leader cards for the turn unless they choose 1 card from their hand, but sends it to the drop area each time. So yeah, like that. A way to get an extra turn, Gowasu, the main man himself, the draw master. The thing about Gowasu to keep in mind is he's good against leaders that just mainly draw, or at least decks that mainly draw. Against leaders that search top cards or burst the top cards of their deck or something like that, or just can search their deck in general. This effect is not that useful. But it depends. Like for example, this would be useless against Dark Broly because they're going to always, try to manipulate the. They're more like, because they look at the top 3 cards of their deck and then they choose to send stuff to the drop and then they shuffle the deck, so it's kind of productive. So this is useless against Dark Broly. So keep that in mind. What else? Any burst leader, any leader that bursts, this effect will be a little less impactful. But on average, against decks that the leader just, has the basic ability of drawing whenever it attacks or something like that. This would definitely be useful. So, like I said, most leaders already do that. This is useful against that. It's definitely very useful against a leader that doesn't draw, right? Because if the leader doesn't draw, this will definitely hurt even more so. So it's situational. There's times where it's really good. There's times where it's not so good. But it doesn't matter, right? It's a good card when it's a good card. That's what I'm saying. Has the active main of once per turn. Look at up to 3 cards from the top of your opponent's deck and place them in any order you want. But like I said, most decks either burst 3, burst 5, right? Or they manipulate the top 3 cards of their deck anyway, or they search the top 5 or plus cards in their deck or 2 cards from their deck, and they do stuff. Or they just have an ability to search, play cards from their deck. Like they could play, skills battle cards or Union Absorb, something like that from their deck. Or they might have the ability to just draw a lot of cards every turn. That's manipulating the top 3. It doesn't matter because more likely you're going to draw all 3 of those cards anyway. So the order is irrelevant because they're just drawing cards anyway. But on average, you definitely want to take advantage of this effect, making your opponent's draw not so good. Because if their draws are not so good, then that will make sure that their hands are not so good. They might end up charging something because they're hoping they'll draw an extra copy of it later. But since you're manipulating their draws, you're making sure they never draw that extra copy. And right there, you have control, right? You have some advantage against them because you made sure they're not getting that extra copy of a card they thought they would be able to get, but you made sure they didn't do this effect. Among other things you can do, obviously, hand warping effects like with the leader's ability, crit, Zamasu's effect, among other hand controlling effects we have in the deck, can greatly increase or decrease your opponent's playability for their hand. It's just the whole thing of the hand control. You're trying to make their hands less playable. Not that they can't still play, it's just less playable. Definitely want to put your opponent in a position where they are always, like when they warp battle cards, which means they will have more of like extra cards, especially negates. And you definitely want to take advantage of that because their negates, all they can do is negate, right? All they can do is use it defensively. They can't use their negates per se offensively. They can only use it defensively. So if they're warping battle cards for your leader's effect, and giving up, cards for your King Code and for your Majin Buu, and, for your Android 18 effects and stuff like that, or your Zamasu, or even your Lord Slug, Unbridled Might. If they're giving up cards, like battle cards from their hands, and they're left with like unisons and extra cards, one, it'd be hard for them to combo, obviously, right, with that situation, as well as you're also adding this situation where it's like, well, they can't do much damage-wise to you with, those types of cards. Unisons, of course, is an exception because unisons do have attack power, so they can use unisons to attack you with, but combo-wise, they won't be able to use it. And that's the main thing. You're just trying to have more control of the duel, so that way you can get most of your attacks to go through. Because the ultimate goal is always to do 8 damage. It is not to outplay your opponent per se or outsmart your opponent. Or this helps you mitigate the resource gain by making it where your opponent's losing cards here and there, so that way you don't have to worry about out resourcing them by trying to draw more and trying to use your cards more effectively and all stuff. Obviously this will help you require less skill, as it were, because just by playing this deck you already will have the advantage card wise, because you're comboing less, you're playing less stuff, because the stuff you play are putting in work. They're doing what they do to give you the advantage, and you're just swinging away every turn with the leader and the unison, using Gowasso to control your opponent's draw, and using Android 18s to control your opponent's hand, and then eventually get Fuse a Mouse to help further reduce your opponent's hand. That kind of stuff. Of course, Android 18, when you combo with her from your hand, your opponent chooses a card from their hand and places that at the bottom of their deck. So, bottom deck is definitely the best place to put cards, right? So hopefully when you're using this, they'll be getting rid of battle cards. And if they're doing that, if they're warping for the leader's effect battle cards, and they're, for Android 18's effect, they're getting rid of battle cards, they're trying to keep like their extra cards or their unisons, for example. Then once you start using Gowasso to control their draw and make sure that the only things they're drawing are like unisons and extra cards, for example, instead of battle cards, then that reduces the clapback, right? The ability for them to play stuff to attack you with, or at least a lot of stuff. If they play a unison, alright, cool. You just gotta deal with the leader in unison. Not that big of a deal. That's just 2 attacks a turn. You gotta stop, right? But you can always get rid of the unison with attacks. Then we got homicidal clones, counterattack, your leader cards mono green, negate the attack, and then play a meta token with 5k power, 0 cost 5k combo power, and blocker for the turn. Permanent, when your life is 5 or less, you can take a card from your life, add it to your hand in order to play this card for free. This effect's not once per turn, so you can do this multiple times as long as you have the life to add to your hands for each copy. And of course, the potential of stopping 2 attacks per copy is always useful, in case your opponent has dual attackers or they just going wide and they have multiple attackers. So being able to block at least 2 attacks per defensive cards or negates is a must. Not only has Bandai been adding more dual attack on more cards, they gave us dual defense, right? Which is nice to help us balance that power creep, whatever they call it, right? So going wide, floodgate defense is needed. It's not enough to negate one attack at a time. You need to attack to stop more than 1 attack per turn. So gotta love these types of negates. Bigger more floodgate active main. If your leader card is green, which it is, your opponent can't attack with battle cards with energy cost 5 or more until the start of your next main phase. So it's obviously very useful if your opponent's cheating out like high cost cards like 9 drops, 5 drops. Obviously, they're doing Union Fusion, things of that nature, EX Evolve, all that good stuff, Overwhelm, things of that nature. This will definitely be useful against that. The fact that it does 5 and higher, obviously this is useful against like Dark Broly. It can be useful against Red Broly, any other deck that has chains that they go up. There are some decks that like to do what is it called? Like the Dragon Ball Evolve strategy, where they bring out a big battle card, do a Dragon Ball effect. So this is useful in that regards. The goal is to always get an extra turn. Extra turns means extra chances of winning, right? Golden Frieza, Unison of Malice, has the +1 ability. Active main, draw a card, take a card from your hand and put it on top of your deck. And then this card gets critical. So this is our critical damage card for the deck strategy. Plus we combine it with our leader's active main, so we can shuffle whatever we put on top of our deck, shuffle it back into our deck. So we don't end up drawing the same thing again and again. You definitely want to shuffle stuff back in the deck, like our Lord Slugs, for example, so we can bring them out later. Obviously, there's a basic play you can do where you have Golden Frieza on the field. Use the effect to draw a card and then place either one of the Lord Slugs you want to play, put it on top of your deck, and then play Majin Buu, the Shadow Warrior, to automatically play either one of your, whichever one you put on top of your deck, so you can just automatically play it out from the top of your deck. And then of course, you know, you get to shuffle your deck afterwards just by Majin Buu's effect, and go from there. Now this is just a nice little simple strategy to deliberately play what you want to play instead of hoping that the top 7 cards and that either one of these are in your top 7. You can guarantee it with this effect. So there's synergy there, and that's a +1 ability, so it gives this card staying power, and its -2 ability, which makes it a lot like Bigger More, is until the end of your opponent's next turn, your opponent can't attack with battle cards unless they choose one other battle card with energy cost 2 or more and place it into the orange drop area. So Floodgate ability, you can obviously use this to set up an anti-clapback scenario where if use this card's -2 ability, right, to get the Floodgate effect for your opponent's turn, then play Meta Cooler, and swing with the leader, swing with Meta Cooler, use Meta Cooler's ability to make a token, activate to make a token, swing with the token, then use this -4 ability, because obviously you should pay 4 to get this out. Use this -4 ability to make 3 more tokens, then attack with those extra tokens, and right there you'll have 6 attack in 1 turn. And if it's not enough to end your opponent out, at least you already use Golden Frieza Malice effect to help you, be safe clapback. But of course, you'll probably still have stuff like homicidal clones as extra line of defense, which is always good to have that extra line of defense. Same thing as using homicidal clones with Bigger More or King Cole's Supreme Ruler. These cards obviously synergize pretty well to give you big defense. So it's always important to improve your defense. Whenever you have the ability to improve your defensive capabilities, always do so. Because attacking is not too difficult. You could always just attack every turn with your leader until you win, right? Or attack with your leader and a unison until you win. So it's more important to improve your defensive capabilities more than your offensive. Because offense is easy in the sense of a lot of cards will have double strike or dual attack or something like that. So dealing 8 damage won't be that difficult. Have cards of that nature that have triple strike, dual attack, and stuff like that. High attack power. It's just more about you want to make sure your opponent can't clap back, as they say. The basic play you can do obviously with Meta Cooler, other than that line of play, the anti-clapback scenario, is if you have 8 energy, obviously you can play this card twice in a turn. Play for 4, swing with the leader, swing with make a token with its activate, then -4 make the 3 extra tokens, attack with them, then play an extra copy of this, swing with this, make a token, right, swing with the token, -4 from this, and a second copy of this card, then play 3 more and then attack. So you can obviously get 11 attacks off of 2 copies of this card on turn 8, which is very useful in the sense that obviously this strategy controls your opponent's hands, or at least helps you try to control your opponent's hand, mitigate the card advantage your opponent might get from draw effects and stuff like that, to keep their hand nice and small. So, and then you use this card to help you go wide real quick and easily, so that way you can try to get as many attacks to go through. Because all you really need, ultimately at the end of the game, is at least 2 attacks to go through. So going wide, be able to stall until you have a lot of energy and play multiple copies, or you could just play this. Like I said, use this to do its -2 ability, then play this, try to go for game. If you only manage 1 damage, your opponent still has 1 life. Alright, cool. Try again next turn for another copy, or try to get Android 21 out there to finish the game for you. Depends on what you do, how you use these cards. Determine the win rate, right? Then we have Vegeta, Resolute Agent of Destruction. It's a double strike crit, does come in handy. It is relevant for this strategy. Don't want to add more cards to your opponent's hand, but ultimately, the main ability you care about the most it's auto, which is choose one card from your hand, discard it. When this card is played, choose all your opponent's battle cards, ignore and bear, which is important, and then KO them. So this is your reliable board wipe, unlike your Lord Slug, which is situational. But it's better to have and not need than to need and not have, right? But this can definitely help us clear our opponent's board. If our opponent does manage to establish a board, especially if they have a deck where they play a lot of stuff for free, we can definitely use this. Plus, the irony if your opponent does play a lot of stuff for free in it, but you did stuff like Homicidal Clones or King Coast Supreme Ruler, right, to survive that turn, and then on your turn, bang, drop the Vegeta, clear the board. And since they used up their hand, and they might not have a way of filling their hand back up, or if they do, you can at least try to mitigate it through the leader effect and the Ross and stuff like that. But at least being able to clear the board after they establish a board is useful. It's not too different from just taking everything out of their hand in one shot, right? So hand control and board control go hand in hand, as they say, in order to have full control. And then Heron's Lineage, good card, active battle ability. We're using it for 1 energy. Choose one of your opponent's battle cards, 7 cost or less, and gain control of it. So of course you can use this offensively, take one of your opponent's battle cards and use it against them, or use it defensively to take a battle card your opponent was trying to go for game with, or just use it to take a blocker and use it to survive a turn at least. And that's the end of the video.